The Tim Heale Thirsty Thursday live stream from 7 until 9 weekly. Here's your host, Tim Heale.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Taboos Thirsty Thursday. Oh, what's happened there? I've done it again. I've left one of the mics open, one of the speakers open. Here we are. We will get the hang of it eventually, I promise. It's just a big, steep learning curve for us every week. Right, so this evening we've got several guests coming in. They're going to be talking about their experiences with grief, with bereavement. So everybody goes through it at some stage in their life, and most of us go through it lots of times, but we all find it really difficult to talk about, and we shouldn't. It should be that sort of everyday conversation, because everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's going to demise one day, and it's having that conversation that that you need to have to make it comfortable. For some reason, people find talking about death really uncomfortable. And if you go to the undertakers, I mean, they're great. They really do know how to put people at ease and get the best out of people when they're the most vulnerable. So recently, this is a little while back, my best mate, hottest daddy here, we've told the story before, up on the roof, hosing off his solar panels, and he came off and bounced off the conservatory, bounced off the car and hit the ground. And it's the ground that did it, I think. The fall didn't kill him. It was the stop at the bottom. Anyway, I've got one of his daughters coming on first, and then I've got another one coming on a bit later. So without too much of ado, let's bring in Stephanie. Stephanie.
There I
Boom.
am.
Boom, you're in the room. As if by magic. Well, Steph, how you doing? It's been a while now since your dear old dad departed.
Yeah, it has been a while, but it hasn't been a while. I think just with the sudden shock of it all, you just kind of, I don't know, it's taken a while to sink in, I think.
Yeah.
Still
It
expect
does.
him to walk in.
Any minute now, yeah. And that's the problem with it. It where you lose somebody that suddenly, you do find yourself thinking they're not coming, and it does take quite a long time to get over that. So
Just even day-to-day things. Today, I was driving the lorry around Bishop Stortford, and I delivered to a school that was not far from Bishop Stortford Tesco's that I worked with Dad for a bit. He was my manager. I was helping him out, and you just, everything sort of takes you back to memories. And I don't go over to Bishop Stortford that often. So as I started getting closer to the store, I was like, oh, that's where me and Dad used to work together and had some like really fun times, and
yeah,
like the drive to work.
He did like to have a lot of fun.
He did. He there used to be one of the managers there, and Dad was the cleaning manager there, and I was there to help him because he was quite short of staff, and I think she sort of looked down on us because we were cleaners, and she always used to walk in the toilets and take a big old breath and be like, oh no, they don't, you haven't cleaned them, they don't smell clean. But you know what it's like with toilets, you know, you can clean them as much as you like, but there is still that odor sort of lingering in the air. And one day Dad thought he'd teach her a lesson, so he mixed bleach and acid descaler together, which is a bit of a no-no because it gives off obviously poisonous gas. So when she walked in the toilets on that morning and was like like that, and Dad was like, she won't moan about that anymore. But and we being a cleaner, you see things and you think, how can people even do this? But at Bishop Stortford Tesco's, we had someone who every Thursday morning by clockwork would go and poo in front of the sink in the ladies' toilets. And we, for months, we stalked the toilets on a Thursday morning, and then we'd get called off, and then we'd get called back to the toilets. We never worked out who it was, and it was just like, who's on poo duty this morning? Because you knew it was going to happen. So we'd be arguing over who was going to be doing the front end that morning.
So for you then, it's still fairly raw, missing your dad.
It's only 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's only been a couple of months. It's, you know, you've obviously lost people before, but never lost a parent, and you know, they've been there since day one.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's going to take a lot of time, basically, to get to the point where it's gone. And you will in time. It does get easier over time. Trust me. Having lost lots and lots of people in my life, it takes a little bit of time, but the pain does ease as time goes on. You don't ever forget them. You don't ever what's the name, but you do have to move on and live your life as though your dad wanted you to. And I guess you're following in his footsteps.
Yeah, and that's why I need to do it by August next year. But I want to. So I'm driving the Class 2 lorries at the moment, and I want to do my Class 1 next, which is obviously what Dad had. But I think talking to some people, because I could have gone straight in to do Class 1, but I thought, do you know what? I'm going to have experience at driving a slightly smaller lorry to start off with. I mean, the 18 tonners still aren't small by any means, but obviously a lot smaller than the Arctics and the trailers and stuff. So, but I've spoken to quite a few people recently, and a lot of although people are going straight in to do their Class 1, they want 2 years experience of driving a Class 2. So I did the right thing by not going straight in for the Class 1, because I'm already going to have that experience by the time I get my Class 1. So
so more often than not, what happens is that you'll get your Class 1, and if you're working for an agency or something like that, they will just naturally put you into Class 2 work until you gain some experience. It's not often you'll go straight up and jump in a Class 1 wagon and away you go.
I mean,
it's easy. I mean, it's easy enough done. I mean, it's not hard.
No, I think Class 1 will be easier to drive in the respects that you haven't got that 6 to 8 foot overhang at the end that you've obviously got to account for. Because I got caught out by that yesterday. I had a little bit of an incident with the wall. But I couldn't have gone any further forward if I tried, because I was up on the pavement on the verge. I couldn't go any further forward, and still as I swung round, it just took a little bit off the flagstone on the top of a brick wall. It wasn't anything major. It was, you know, it could have been a lot worse. But
I mean, you could have had some real fun taking the wall down altogether.
Well, that's what I thought would happen to start off with, because the bang was horrific, and I was like, oh no, and then I got out and I was like, what have I done? And then I was like, aha. But yeah, you know, but as Mum was saying, because I was a little bit annoyed about it yesterday, and she said, you know, you're driving all day, every day. You're gonna have accidents.
Yeah.
You're tired.
It's just gaining that experience. Basically, at the end of the day, it's just getting your experience day in, day out. Take your time. I mean, you're paid salary or you're paid by the hour. Take your time. There's no need to rush. There's nobody pressurising you. Well,
No,
is
annoyingly though, I was put out in one of our Mercedes, which are the older vehicles in the fleet, and they don't have any rear cameras, and it's the first time I've driven a lorry without any rear cameras.
Lucky
So had I have had the camera, I'd have obviously seen that I wasn't clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I try not to rely on them, but it's that second, that look of like, am I clear? Quick glance, yeah, all good. But yeah, live and learn. It was only a little knock. It didn't damage the lorry. It was just concrete. It wasn't a wall. So
I bet your dad's done worse.
He's had more accidents than I've had hot dinners. Yeah, and he fell off. Yeah, I was telling someone today. When Dad was working for Tesco's, he put the tail lift down and climbed up into the lorry. Forgot that he'd climbed up into the lorry, pulling a cage back to go on the tail lift. Well, the tail lift weren't there, was it? So he went over the back, and the cage landed on him. And one of the Tesco ladies was like, "Oh my god, he's killed himself." So he managed to push the cage off of him, and he went, "No, not dead, just very embarrassed."
Only I imagine he didn't go, woo, he probably went far.
Yeah, he did F and Jeff. That's the thing.
Bet a few profane syllables came out of his.
Yeah, for sure. Even the next door neighbour said, you know, a couple of days after, she said, "Oh, we knew it was bad because we didn't hear any shouting or swearing." I was like, yeah, that's normally an indication of something's gone wrong.
Not doing well.
Can you see what that light is out there?
Anyway, Steph, thanks for your input. We're going to drop you down now. I'm just going to go in for a quick, what we're going to do, a quick what's coming up. So let me just pull up these. What we've got coming up is we've got some specials. So today, obviously, we've got the second of the bereavement specials. Next week, we've got the veteran suicide special and mental health. It's an important one. I've got some, hopefully, big guests coming on that are going to help us talk us through this one. I've been looking at the ONS figures today, and it looks there's around about between 5,000 and 6,000 people a year taking their own lives. It's not clever, it's not funny, and lots of those are needless. So set your reminder for next week, get your alarm set or whatever you do, reminder for the Veterans Suicide Special. It's going to be a really interesting show, if nothing else, and it may help save somebody's life if you've got the tools in your toolkit to be able to identify somebody that's struggling and just give them a hug or whatever they need. The following week, this is the one that we postponed, unfortunately. We all know why we postponed that one. But we've got the archaeologist coming back. That's going to be the 6th of October. Really looking forward to that one. We've had a massive response for people wanting to watch that show. So again, get it set in your diaries for Thursday evening, 7 o'clock. There's nothing on the telly, so you might as well watch us. We come up with some fantastic stuff, trust me. You know I do. The following weekend, the 13th. Now I'm still working on this one. I'm hoping to get canines, something to do with canines in. But you'll have to wait for that one. I'm waiting for confirmation on it. As is the following weekend, I might do an open forum, or I might not. I've got an idea that we might be looking at maybe something to do with prostate cancer, that sort of thing. Maybe working on it. It's another work in progress. But here's a good one coming up. Date for your diaries: 3rd of November. Going into the old remembrance. I've got some fighter pilots coming on. I've got 2 at the moment. One's a US Navy Top Gun pilot, and you've all seen Top Gun. Apparently it ain't like that. And the other one is the US Air Force, doing exactly the same thing. He's an instructor at the weapons school, but they don't call it Top Gun. They just call it a weapons school. So we should have a bit of banter there. And hopefully I'm working on getting at least 1 or 2 UK fighter pilots to come and join me. I've been in touch with one of the big cheeses, and he's going to try and get a couple of lads on to do that. So that's what we've got coming up in a not too distant future. I'm constantly looking for taboo subjects that we're going to cover. I'm looking maybe at a depression one coming up fairly soon, and anxiety. So we'll have to see how that goes. Right, without further ado, I'm going to bring in young Catherine. Now, Catherine's got quite a story to tell. Hi, Catherine. How you doing?
Hey, Tim. It's so great to be here with you. Thank you so much for bringing me into this. I was
You are
thrilled.
most welcome.
I was thrilled when I heard that you were focusing on bereavement. And I'm looking at my glasses in the camera. It's like, wow, all you can see is light on them. So I'm just going to take them off. So while I'm talking, just know I can't see you, but now you can see me. So I lost my 18-year-old daughter in 2012. My daughter, Lisa, I lost her to suicide. And it's been 10 years. So I have a bigger view of what this grief looks like now. And it looks a lot different to me now than it did a couple years in. And I like to think of myself as a voice for what I call silent grief. And let me tell you what I mean by silent grief. So, when you lose someone, anyone you lose, whether it's a spouse or a sibling or, a parent or a grandparent or a daughter or a son, it's hard. Or a cat. I'd say it's been a year. My husband is still grieving our cat. But and I don't make light of that. When you love somebody, in the case of the cat, somebody, and you lose them, it's devastating. And even beyond people, if you lose a job, you lose a career, you lose a relationship, there's all kinds of loss. And it's very much in the same genre. But I'm going to speak about losing a child because that's my thing, although I have lost both my parents as well. And I will say that losing my parents and losing my daughter were very, very different experiences. Both sad, but very, very different.
So basically, you're an orphan.
Yeah. Yes. I was just listening to your previous guest, and someone had told me once that when your parents die, you feel, for the first time ever, you feel totally like you're on your own. Like you always feel like you have your parents, got your back. Because they've always been there. So love to you anyway. I popped in just before you announced her name, so I didn't catch her name, and I apologize for that. But I like to think of myself as, this is something that people don't talk about. I like to think of myself as like an advocate for the voice of silent grief. So what I mean by silent grief is this. Everyone knows what grief is. You lose someone, you're grieving. In the case of losing a child, that span could be pretty big. But in retrospect, looking through my own grief, I actually went through 3 phases. Nothing to do with the 5 stages of grief. I'm not talking about that. The first phase is what I call grief. It's like raw and in your face. It's the grief that everyone knows. You lose someone and you're grieving. And for me, that phase lasted 18 months, 2 years. I was still a wreck after 2 years. I was barely functional. my life had blown apart. Everything was upside down. I didn't even know how to put it back together. But at some point, you hit that point where, during phase one grief, where it's really raw, everyone mobilizes, your friends and your family. There's, you go to therapy, there's support groups. There's so much support during that point. But at some point, you think you're supposed to be out of grief. But when you lose a child, I find many people who lose a child, they carry their grief forever in their life. So when you hit the second phase, that I call phase two, what happens is it's no longer socially accepted to still be grieving. Like, you've kind of worn everyone out around you. They just don't want to talk about it anymore, or they don't feel comfortable talking about it. I mean, death is so uncomfortable for people. And what happens is the rest of the world seems to kind of go back to their life. And what I experienced was I couldn't find my life. Like, I didn't have a life to go back to. My life revolved around my daughter. And I didn't, so you grieve alone, and it's, you pretend you're okay and you're not. And you can't really talk about it anymore because you've tired everybody out about talking about it. It's been like 2 years. Like, people start to feel like, come on, you need to move on. You need to get over it. And for a lot of people, when they lose a child, they don't feel, I don't want to say they can never get over it. They don't feel that they can get over it. And in a lot of ways, they hold on to the grief for dear life, because if they let go of the grief, that's like losing their child again. So they're wrapped tightly in this grief. So when I hit this point in my experience, what happened was my life was so dysfunctional. I lost everything. I lost my house. I lost my son. I lost everything. And I couldn't pull it back together. And the truth is, life was going on without me, and I couldn't figure out how to get back on. Like, I didn't even want to get back on, but I had to. And I did something different because I had to. I really didn't have a choice. I started working on myself. And I started working on my anger. Like, how can you lose a child and not be angry? I love anger and resentment, sadness, disappointment, bitterness, all of these like really, really intense emotions. And I kind of had to work through them because I couldn't figure out how to put my life back together. So something really surprising and amazing happened to me in the process of doing this. What I discovered was, turns out I was kind of angry, resentful, bitterness, sad, disappointed. This is not something new for me. Like, yeah, it happened so in my face when my daughter died that I had to deal with it. But the truth is, that was kind of an overriding theme for my whole life. Most of my life, I was not happy. I was angry. And through this process, I began to learn forgiveness for myself. Self-forgiveness is very big for parents who've lost a child. I learned to embrace gratitude. I developed a whole new perspective on life. And what happened was, I actually experienced I healed the pain from losing my daughter, but I actually had a profound healing that was much more expansive than just my daughter. I actually became like a different person, a better person than I had ever been before, because I finally got rid of all that junk that I've been carrying my whole life. And it was the death of my daughter that caused me to have to look at that stuff and clear it out and heal. And when I say heal, I believe that God means for us to heal. I mean, if you break an arm, put it in a cast, eventually it heals. If you have a bigger injury, eventually it heals. But there's a thing about losing a child that it's kind of accepted that you're going to carry that grief forever. And I want to be a voice that you don't have to carry it forever. You can actually heal that. And it's a choice to do it. And it's hard work. And it took me a long time. But at the same time, what I've done is I've taken this terrible thing that happened to my daughter dying, and I've transformed it into something beautiful. So her death doesn't feel like it was for nothing. It doesn't feel like just loss. It's like whether I chose to do this or not do it doesn't matter because she's gone. Like I can't change that. But what I can do is choose to make something better out of it. And my life is like a tribute to my daughter. And I thank her for that. I'm not grateful that she died. Of course, no. But I'm grateful that she gave me this gift after she was gone. And it has transformed my life, and it's given more meaning to my life and to her. And it's my way of honoring and tributing her, being a tribute to her. And I also feel she's on the other side going, yay, Mom, come on, you can do this. You can do this. So I guess what I want to say is that I want to be a voice for not the grief that happens right away, because I feel like there are a lot of services for that. But later when you have to really deal with it, when the rest of the world has moved on, don't give up. That's my message to people. Don't give up, and take something really painful, a tragedy, and find a gift in it.
That's beautiful. Losing parents is one thing. That's kind of expected. To lose a child isn't. And I think losing a child...
say a spouse is pretty hard too. I really empathize with what you went through.
Yeah,
I have to say that's probably number 2.
Yeah, because so the natural order of things is that you would naturally lose a parents due to old age if they get that far, and when you get in your later stages of life, you expected to one of you to go before the other one if you've been married for a long time. And it's never easy.
You drew the short straw.
Yeah. So, but we had the conversation beforehand, before she died, and she wanted me to carry on with life.
That's beautiful. You don't have that conversation with a child.
No.
You don't see it coming. It's very,
well, it's normally the other way around with a child. When I go, but you don't expect to lose a child, and
you don't.
And I think from that point of view, that makes
the loss is so devastating, because it's not even just losing that person that you love. All of your dreams for them, all of them you thought you would be part of their growing up and getting married and having children and grandchildren, and like all of your expectations are just smashed. Yeah. And if you had, it's a lot of loss. It's very, very, it's very far
so much that you do lose.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that's almost unbearable. And
it is.
It's a tragedy that it happens. And unfortunately, it happens all too often.
And I'm glad that you said that, because that's really a big part of it. So I'm going to say one more thing. One of the problems that parents, one of the big problems that they have is their brain is just churning and churning and churning. Your brain is like a tool, and it's trying to process data and make things right. And so our brain just like keeps going over it and over it and over it. And a big part of it is realizing that nothing about this is ever going to be right. You have to accept that it's not like, a bookkeeper. You make all the numbers line up, and then you add them all up and you tie it all up with a neat bow. It's never going to be like that. And that's a big part of it is, people talk about acceptance.
Yeah.
And I think this is a little confusing, because acceptance could be, people think that means, accept that your daughter is gone. But doesn't. Actually, acceptance to me is accepting that I can't change it.
Yeah.
That's the acceptance, not accepting that your child is gone, because your brain is going to try and reprocess that forever. It's never going to feel right.
They'll always still be there. That's where you keep them, in your heart. They'll
always
be there.
Of course.
And I think that's the big thing to take away. That yes, the bodily gone but spiritually and the love for them is still with you. And I
Oh,
think
it is still with you. And
that's
it's
the thing that you carry always.
to focus on the love and not on the loss. Because what happens is, you know, you love your child. Like before Lisa died, people would say, oh, they talked to me about Lisa. I could talk to her about all day long. After she died, I could talk to her for about her for like 10 minutes, and then it's her bawling. And what happened was now the bawling is about me, and I'm not even talking about Lisa anymore. I'm not glorifying her or talking about how amazing she was, and she's the most amazing person I've ever known. But it became I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at my camera. Where are my hands? Okay. There's her, and then the loss gets like wrapped around it and entwined in it. And what you have to do is you peel the loss away so that you can go back to just being focused on your child and loving and cherishing your child, because it sucks that I lost her after 18 years, but I had 18 years. And it took me a long time to realize, you know what? In some ways, I'm the luckiest person in the world because I was her number one for 18 years. And to focus, to redirect and shift your framing to not be on the loss, but instead of cherish and be so grateful for what you have. And it's hard and it takes a long time. So for anyone who's watching who has recently lost a child, this is not happening right away. When you first lose anyone, you're basically unconsolable. I mean, it's great to have people there. I honestly can't remember even what people said to me, but it was so good to just have people there and feel loved. That's so, so, so important. And you're basically, nothing makes you feel better. It's hard. It's just so hard.
Nothing can make you feel better. Well, Catherine, thank you for that.
Thank you.
That's been enlightening. So we'll bring you back in a
Okay,
little while.
thank you.
So for now, we're just going to take a short break. And I've taken a short break just to let you know what's coming up in the next few weeks. So I'm just going to give you a quick heads up. And the reason I'm doing that is because we're going to not just have this go out as a 2-hour thing. We're going to drop it down into 4 half-an-hour segments. So if you don't get a chance to watch the whole thing, you can watch parts of it.
The Tim Heale Thirsty Thursday live stream from 7 until 9 weekly.